We are Dominikus Baur and Daniel Goddemeyer,
Hi.
and our talk is titled Future Imperfect. And we would start off with saying that we love magic. And I like the ability of the magician to perform the necessary skills to surprise and amaze us with something we thought it wasn't possible. And from the masters, like escape artist Harry Houdini, who could escape out of anything, even a milk can, while being handcuffed, to the more technological magic of David Copperfield. And I'm particularly interested in how technological contraptions are being used in these tricks. And one nice example for that is the Mechanical Turk. And the Mechanical Turk was exhibited as a magic chess-playing automaton. But actually, once they opened it up, there was a small person inside it operating the levers. And I think it's very symbolic for magic in the way that magic is magic because we don't quite understand how it works. And we have no idea how the trick is possible. But once we understand it, it stops being magic. And there's always been a close connection between technology and magic. So not only magic tricks that use technology, but also technology that we perceive as magic. From the early experiments of Nikola Tesla to Thomas Edison, who was considered the wizard of Menlo Park, I think we all remember experiences with technology that felt like magic. And so for me, very personally, I think it was the first time I called my mother on a mobile phone while being on a train. And I thought, oh, this is crazy. I can talk to my mom on a mobile phone. But I think even today, the smaller experiences feel quite magic. So for me personally, it was the first time I Shazammed a song. And so the app told me what song I was just listening to. And then, obviously, the Face ID by Apple, that just magically unlocks your phone by looking into your face. And then the first time, I received my Discover Weekly playlist by Spotify, and I was really amazed by how accurate the recommendations are. And so I think like one of the aspects why these experiences feel magic is that they eliminate friction. And this is how technology is supposed to work. It's supposed to just look you in the face and know who you are. And so for these experiences, data is a fundamental part, and that is why the magic works. And today, Dominikus and I would love to perform a little magic experience with you guys to get to know you, but also you to get to know each other a little bit.
Exactly. So now please take out your smartphones. I know it's usually frowned upon to do that during a talk. It's also nice that you all kept them hidden away. But now please take them out, open a web browser, and go to this URL that you see up there. So it's TEDx.polylog.io. And once you do that, you should see a black screen saying hi. And one additional circle should appear up here. So as we can see, lots of people are already doing it. The idea behind that is we want to get to know you, and you get to know each other. So we're going to go through a series of questions. You don't have to do anything, just answer the questions. They will pop up automatically on the website that you've just connected to. And then your little circle up there, which you might not be able to identify, but it is there, believe me, will fly to the corresponding option that you've chosen. So you can still connect to this, TEDx.polylog.io, even if the experiment already started. But for the ones already here, the 250 people, we're going to give it a little try. So this is a dummy question. Just select whichever answer you want your little dot to fly to. Okay, seems like people get the idea. Cool. Okay, you can also change your answer, go to a different corner of the screen if you want. Okay, this is already very meaningful, as you can see. Sweet. Okay.
Pretty nice.
I think you got the idea. Let's start in earnest. So one thing we're interested in is people are from all kinds of regions and cities tonight. So where did you come from tonight? Okay, lots of people from Brussels. Lots of people from Louvain. Yeah. We kind of expected that.
2 people from Antwerp. So another thing that we were interested in, because some people aren't quite sure where they're from, I guess.
Whatever you feel like.
Just for, yeah. But I think one thing that we're interested in, because we're doing this at a university in Louvain, is are you actually a student or a professional? Do you currently study or do you currently work?
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah, okay. Roughly 50-50. Okay. And if you're studying or if you're working, there's of course some area that you perform your studies or you work in. So what would that be? How would you describe the area that you're working in or studying? Sorry.
It's good, engineering IT.
Lots of engineers.
So I think the next question, like we all know probably the stereotype about a specific style of architects, that they have like the turtleneck and big glasses. And we were quite curious, is there a specific style tonight in the audience? So what are you wearing tonight? What color is your top?
We're pretty boring, so black and gray, but what's yours? Okay, cool. Pretty evenly mixed.
Yeah, a lot of blues. And so the other thing, like speaking of appearances, one thing that I'm personally curious about, I'm typically the tallest person in the room. And when I meet somebody who's taller than me, I'm pretty confused because it happens so rarely. So I personally would be very curious, is there anybody tonight here who's taller than me?
Ooh.
Oh, wow.
Couple of people.
5.
All right. Some people aren't really sure. Well. Now for a little bit of a personal question, how old are you? So we have lots of students here in the room. Would expect them to be a bit younger, but who knows? Okay, yeah, well.
Seems about right.
Seems about right.
Yeah. So the next question, before I met Dominikus, I was visiting my family, and my little niece is really into this one Canadian artist. And I wasn't quite sure if that's actually still a thing, and it's a little bit of a random question, but do you like Justin Bieber? Wow.
Okay.
Quite a few believers in the room.
Nice.
Wow.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
All right, okay, so some people are switching to the hell yes camp now. Yes. Cool, but going back to a more serious topic, so for your future career, whether you're working already or not, what is most important to you? Because of course there are various goals in life that you could follow. You could go for money or fame or maybe family and work-life balance. And of course, world peace is always an option. Not for many people, apparently.
So, but let's assume for a moment, like even if you chose money or fame, that we all probably can't argue against world peace or the greater good. So, but in these times, our futures are a little bit uncertain. So we would be curious, if you had one wish for the future, what would that be? And this is a type-in question. So type in your wish for the future and send it to the stage, please.
Yep. Type it in, press submit.
Whoa!
Yes, thank you.
Who wouldn't want that? Sweet.
That was fast. Whoever did that, nice. We can't help you with that, sorry.
Yeah. Sorry. Oh, and then actually we forgot one last question.
One thing is, so now we have all these various ideas of what you want to do in the future. And one thing that might not be apparent to you, but we have a really hard time seeing you guys there in the audience. We're pretty clearly lit here up on stage. So one last thing we want to do is we would ask you to take a selfie of you and send it to us. So now you should see a little placeholder icon on your phones. So just tap on that, and then your phone will ask you to take a picture. You can also upload a picture if you want to send us something else. And press submit once you're ready. All right. Okay, people are coming in. Cool.
Good.
Nice, good to see you. There's way more dogs and cats in the audience than I expected.
All right.
Sweet, okay.
So actually, there's one more last thing that we would like to ask you. After we've spent 10 minutes with you, asking you sort of personal question, the last question we would like to ask you is, how concerned are you actually about sharing your data with us in this little experiment?
Yep. Okay. Yeah, maybe some of you are kind of getting where we're going with this. Okay, so thanks so much for participating. That was the last question. Please leave your phones open and unlocked in your lab, for example. We're going to do some more things with that. But first, let's go back to one question that we asked, namely, where you're from. And of course, just a single attribute of the data is somewhat boring, but we can always compare that to another aspect of the data. For example, where the students are from in the room. And you can see that there's a slight majority of students for Louvain, for example, which you would expect. Of course, you can also look at what people are studying or where they're working in. And that, again, might change. And since we have so many attributes that we've collected tonight, we can also add a third attribute to the data. And, for example, have our age distribution as color coding on top of the data that we've already collected. And then, of course, we can also switch to other aspects, like if you think about how your life has gone so far and what kind of goals you had in your life, that might also change throughout the course of your life, of course. So maybe as a student you will want different things than as an adult and a professional. And finally, there's, of course, also certain things like Justin Bieber fandom, which might have a slight correlation with age, who knows?
So we see a little bit like the Justin Bieber fans seem a little bit younger in the audience tonight. And as it is with correlations, sometimes they're meaningful and insightful, and sometimes not that much. So in this case, we would like to take a little bit of a closer look at the Justin Bieber fans. So they're a little bit on the younger side, but then let's see what city they're actually from. Okay, so a few from Brussels, well enough. And then let's make the age a little bit clearer, and let's look at the age of those. Okay, oh, looks pretty at least. And then let's look at one descriptive characteristic of them. So let's see how tall the hardcore Justin Bieber fans are. Okay, so they sort of like a few taller ones here, a few like average height. But then let's do one last thing, and let's switch the age to the sweater color we asked you earlier. So if you see a Justin Bieber fan with who's a little bit taller with a green or white or blue sweater, you can be sure that he might be a Justin Bieber fan.
Okay, and finally, one last thing. So again, please make sure that your phones are unlocked and the browser is open. And now we would ask you to please lift up your phones and show them to us.
And can we dim the speaker lights a little bit?
Yeah, that would be great. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
And now some of the phones have started blinking. If you look around, you might see them, and those are all the students in the room.
Look around, try to see the students.
And now here's all the professionals, which should be the other half, hopefully, roughly. And we can also look at the applied scientists, for example, which might help us with our problems. And finally, one last thing. This is the people who said that they had nothing to hide when it came to their data.
Okay.
All right.
So we see a few people like putting down their phones and putting it into their pockets. So that's definitely one thing that you can do. And you can also
get the lights
like,
again?
just hide it into your pocket, the phone. But then, remember the pictures you took earlier? So we have the pictures and the images of you right now, and to each of these pictures, through your questions, you created a data trail that is attached to your image right now. And it would be very easy for us to specifically point out the people based on the data questions you gave us. And it's a little bit the question like, what would happen if we would start to point out the people who were interested in money and fame versus the greater good? Or we purposely kept the questions quite lighthearted, but what if, under the assumption you would be anonymous, we would ask you way more personal question, and then starting to point out the average and the outliers?
And getting back to this topic that we had in the beginning of magic and technology, we've created this magical, playful experience for you tonight, and that was enough to make you give us your data without you even knowing what we would do with it. And of course, this is not only happening in this room, but this is happening at scale with pretty much all of the digital services that we're using. It's not always clear what they're going to do with our data that we're giving to them. And if you think back to the recent news of Cambridge Analytica and Facebook, for example, nobody really told us before what would or could happen to this data. It was already enough to just give us some engaging interaction and make us curious about the lives of others to make us give up this data. And of course, this situation here is a bit different from the Facebook situation because we have this aspect of direct accountability. So Daniel and I are both standing down here on stage, physically present. And if we would have done something that would have really made you mad, then you could have always formed a mob and stormed the stage and taken revenge into your own hands. Please don't form a mob. But of course, with those digital services, that's much harder to do. They're somewhere on the internet. How would you get hold of them? The other thing is that in here you had complete control over which information you gave us or which photo you sent to us. And you were quite aware of what you were sending to us. You could have also lied or not answered any questions. Again, something that might be much harder if you have an app running on your smartphone that is collecting data about you without you even knowing that. And finally, of course, here you always had the option of just walking out of the room, basically telling us, okay, it's not for me, whatever you're doing here. Again, something that might be much more difficult with digital services.
And so in the future, we will have a lot of emerging technologies that will enter our everyday lives. And from AIs that can create art and make pictures, to like getting delivered whatever we want, whenever we want it, to an AI that can make one thing into another. And I think those technologies, they will come under the promise that they're convenient and bring us like convenience in our everyday lives. But they will also have to figure out very heavy ethical questions, like, for example, in the case of the autonomous vehicle, in case of an accident, who to prioritize and who to preserve. And so to speak in the words of Arthur C. Clarke, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Some of these experiences will feel like magic to us, but they will have wide-ranging and very fundamental implications to our everyday lives. And I feel that if we look at them as magic, that we have to be a little bit concerned about not just leaning back and enjoy being amazed and being surprised by the experiences, but think about the underlying intentions of the system behind it. And so to end up, we would like to say that given the complexity, scale, and immediacy of our use of our future products, we need new methods to experience tomorrow's technological implications today. And we hope that our experience today contributed a little bit to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.